All right, guys, this quick mini video is going to cover how to get the thesis point on the DBQ and LEQ on the AP History exams. In both of these essay formats, you get 1 point for the thesis statement. This point should be easy for you to get so long as you know the rules for getting this point. So I'm going to go through 4 kind of main points on how you get this point on the AP exam. So number 1, your thesis must answer the question that was asked. Do not hijack it. Do not make it into something else. This means you have to identify what historical thinking skill they want. If it says factors, they mean causes of something. If it says transform, they mean change over time. Make sure you kind of know what those words mean fully and you're ready to use them. Every essay will target a skill of some kind. You need to figure that out and use it to your advantage. Number 2, out of 4, the thesis must take a position. What does that mean? It means you cannot simply repeat the question and expect to get the point. So if the question is asking you to evaluate whether or not, then you need to take a stand. Yes or no. Did it not? If the question asks you to evaluate the extent to which, then you need to take a stand. How much? How far? A lot? A little? You have to have an answer to that specific question. Okay, so let's use the 2019 DBQ question as an example for point number 1, answer the question that's asked, and point number 2, take a position. Okay, so here's the question. Evaluate the extent to which the Portuguese transformed maritime trade in the Indian Ocean in the 16th century. First, you have to answer how much the Portuguese transformed trade in the Indian Ocean. It has to be evaluative. Not just that they changed trade or that they didn't, but how much they changed it. Second, you have to focus on the word transform, which indicates that you should focus on the change over time skill. So basically, point number 1 and point number 2 are about understanding the question before you can even formulate your thesis. Once you understand the question, then you can dive into your answer. That brings me to point number 3, that the thesis must suggest a historically defensible or accurate primary reason or argument for your answer to the question. You have to make it very clear what the most important point is. So, what is the most significant similarity or difference if it's a comparative question? Or what is the most fundamental effect or cause if it's a causation question? Or what is the most important continuity or change if that seems to be the focus of the question? What is the most important transformation? You can have secondary reasons. In fact, it's good to have secondary reasons, but be sure to state what was the most important. Doing this establishes your argument. Now, point number 4. The thesis must include a line of reasoning, the why, the because behind your most important reason, which you have just identified in point number 3. This is where you can also establish the analytic categories, the roadmap is what some people call it, for the argument you plan to make. What are the main pieces of evidence that will back you up? Now, don't get too specific here. If you get super specific, then you'll give away a decent chunk of your essay. You want something minimally specific so that you have the categories established of where your essay is going without giving away all of your evidence at the same time. You can see what I mean when you look at the actual rubric the College Board uses right here. Notice how they word the point for the thesis. It has to be historically defensible or accurate. You can't have inaccurate information and expect to get this point. It also has to, see the quote there, establish a line of reasoning. It cannot simply restate the prompt. The other thing to notice here is that it needs to be in your introduction or your conclusion to count. It can't show up randomly in the middle of your paper. So of course, where is the best place for it to go? Right after your contextualization in the introductory paragraph. Okay, so back to that Portuguese and the Indian Ocean Basin Trade 2019 DBQ question. Let's look at a thesis that gets the point. Here we go. Although the arrival of the Portuguese was a very important change in Indian Ocean maritime trade in the 16th century, it did not completely transform the trade, as the Portuguese never extended their control beyond a few ports and had to compete with Indian merchants and regional states, such as the Ottoman Empire and the Sultanate of Aceh. The College Board said that this particular thesis statement is good. It responds to the prompt with an evaluative claim that establishes a line of reasoning. What does that mean? Well, they didn't just answer the question minimally. You can tell what their main points are. They've gone beyond a simple answer to the question with something that shows a complex thought process. Yes, the Portuguese transformed trade, but not completely. Why? Because they never controlled everything, and there was still competition in the region. Okay, let's look at another example. Here we go. The Portuguese transformed maritime trade in Indian Ocean in the 16th century by taxing non-Portuguese ships that traded in the region. Now, you can immediately tell that this one is not as good as the first one, but it still gets the point. The College Board says this is the minimum, that it responds to the prompt with a minimally acceptable claim. It did transform trade by taxing ships that weren't their own. That last piece is the establishment of a line of reasoning. A weak one, but it's there because it provides the why behind it all. It's really limited and it's low bar. But here were two examples, one really good and one minimum, bare minimum of acceptable thesis statements. Okay, so overall, the thesis point is a bit more complex than most people think it is to get. You can't just answer the question without the reasoning behind your answer. The reasoning has to be in the thesis too. So let's review the four main things your thesis needs to accomplish. Point number one, it has to answer the question. Point number two, it has to take a position or a stand with regard to the question. Number three, it must suggest a historically defensible or accurate primary reason or argument for your answer to the question. And number four, it must establish a line of reasoning or provide the why behind your thesis statement. Do not make your reader hunt for your thesis statement either. Put it right after your contextualization in the first paragraph of your essay. Hopefully this helps you get the thesis point on your AP History essays. Check out the thesis statement handout I have posted on Canvas. It's from me and Mrs. Broderick. We worked on it together. We also had help from multiple other history teachers across the country. So this has been pretty vetted. Be sure to check out other history teacher videos too, like Heimler's History or others for more thesis statement writing examples. It can only help you to get different perspectives from different teachers. So see you next time.